Yeah, and in the meantime, if you want, there's little QR code survey that you can scan on your phones, and you should be able to vote on. There's a couple of questions that we're going to have just before as we're waiting for people to join in here. And then there's also a couple of questions we're going to ask once we're done the intros and we have everybody in here. It looks like most people we have an interesting mix of, we have a lot of people that are kind of 0 to 1, like new or kind of not 1 to 3 years, so kind of they've been using Tableau for a bit, and then we have a good chunk of people that were 6+ years, 3 to 6 years. So we have kind of like a pretty decent mix of newer, but then also some pretty experienced people on this call as well, it seems like. Nashville. Mordor. Well, I'm glad that I'm not sure if it's Saruman himself that has graced us with their presence, or Santa, or Mrs. Claus. And I see some people have joined us from just from Alberta Health Services. So, okay, well, I think we've kind of given plenty of time for people to join us, even though we seem to have people from the North Pole. And I guess this is what happens when you add no validation. I was thinking, do we add province? Do I say what province? Do I say what city? I was like, I'll just leave it open. And then I guess, that's when the orcs sneak in, or, Saruman or Santa Claus or Mrs. Claus and whatnot. So, so yeah, anyways, but it's nice. It's nice to nice to see that. Nice to see who we've gotten in, and I think that should be plenty of time for people to join in and whatnot. We are kind of on a tentative slide deck, so the slide deck's going to look different next time. I think we just got to track down the quote unquote official one. So oops. But yeah, welcome to the. I don't know if I want to say first or the first of the revival of the Canadian Tableau HealthCare user group. I know we've in the past we had kind of a very small Canadian Tableau HealthCare user group with just a couple people from kind of the I guess leadership or admin side of so people like myself of each organization, but I've started inviting just more broader audience. So we'll have people that are analysts from all sorts of organizations, including people that are more on the admin side. So I think it'll be interesting because, for some people, they'll get to see, kind of what's happening under the covers, but also there'll be a lot of stuff like, I'm excited to see what Brittany's doing at Hamilton Health Sciences, for example, and what Siuwin's doing at Orillia. And I think it'll be really valuable for people to see what else is going on across the country, because we're all solving similar problems, even though we're all in different provinces and whatnot. So yeah, but I guess some quick introductions for myself. I'm Eric. I'm the analytics application lead at Alberta Health Services. I've been running the Tableau deployment for, I want to say, almost 7 or 8 years now. I think I've been on this team for almost 10 years now. But I've been in kind of like the leadership role and just making sure the lights stay on, people can use the tool well and all that kind of stuff. So I've been in this role for quite a long time. I live in Calgary, Alberta, and do a lot of skiing and biking and ski touring and mountain biking, all that kind of good stuff. So I'm one of the co-leads of this. So we're just the ones doing the organization, reaching out to Tableau and setting up the group. But I know there's a lot of other people. Brittany is the co-lead, and I do, it's one of those things I do want to get a lot of, input and help from, other organizations as well. Because I know, I think we have people probably in here from, Vancouver Coastal Health and a lot of different organizations. Like, I see people from Vancouver Coastal Health and a lot of people from Ontario and stuff like that. So I think it'll be nice to kind of get input from, not just, it's, even though myself and Brittany are the co-leads, I do want input from a lot of other people and other organizations, because I think it'll be really valuable. But Brittany, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. So my name is Brittany, and I'm joining today from the Central Analytics and Business Solutions team at Hamilton Health Sciences, so Hamilton, Ontario. My role very much encompasses kind of all things Tableau. So my focus is really kind of content governance, Tableau education, standards and best practices, community engagement, and tool adoption. I've been at HHS and working with Tableau now for about 4.5 years, but have been in the kind of business intelligence space now for almost 10 years. And I'm really excited to help bring this group together and focus on Canadian healthcare so that we can learn from one another.
Okay. I guess just into the agenda here. So first, we're going to start off with Siuwin here from Orillia Soldier and Memorial Hospital, and we'll be talking about his experiences with cloud. So I think that'll be really interesting, since I think I'm going to do another survey here in a second, but I think probably the majority of us are still on-prem. But I think it's well, there's a lot of organizations that are kind of looking into the cloud. What does that mean? What does that mean for, end users? What does that mean for analysts? What does that mean for administration? Like, what is it? What's this look like? Since it's all new to a lot of us. And then Shah Gill is going to be talking about new features in Tableau. So I think that'll be really exciting, because there's some. I know there's some, some Sankeys and some, I think there's some pretty neat new features this time around. And then last but not least is Brittany from talking about Tableau at Hamilton Health Sciences. So I'm just going to spin up the other Slido really quick because I am curious. So if everybody can, take out their phones again and or join in here. It is a different Slido link, unfortunately, but I am curious to see how many people are either on-prem or on cloud, or if you don't know what I'm talking about, then I guess you'll be learning pretty quickly what we mean by cloud and on-prem at the next talk here. But and Andrew's asking in the chat, do you mean where the Tableau server is? And I mean, yep. So I know, Andrew, you're from HS, so the answer for us is we're still on-prem. I love watching this because it's like, oh yeah, there's a lot of cloud, and then it's kind of ebbs and flows depending. But there's still a good amount of people on the there's still a good amount of people on cloud, because 30% of people is actually higher than I thought, because I'm not exactly sure who's on cloud and who's not. So that's it's pretty neat. And the next thing, because I think part of some of these questions as well are kind of leaning towards, future sessions and things like that. Because I know not everybody across the country is using Tableau Prep yet. I know some people are just using Tableau Desktop still. So I'm just thinking, how many people are using Tableau Prep personally? And then that kind of, it leads into future content, because we're interested to say, well, are people going to be interested if we talk about Tableau Prep, or is everybody going to be scratching their head and say, we can't even use this yet? Looks like some people, Sonia is just starting with Tableau Prep. And just out of curiosity here, I know nothing really scientific about this one, but I just wanted to kind of see, who's who in the zoo. Like, we have, a bunch of people that are responding with Epic. We have Cerner, and because I think this kind of stuff is, Epic Editech, because if you have one, why not have both? But I think it is interesting because Alberta Health Services, we have Epic. Some people are responding NA, Strata, PeopleSoft, Vax, Practice Suite, Genesis. But I think it is interesting because Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, haven't tried that one yet. I think it might be more fun than than the other options on the board, though. But yeah, it is interesting to kind of see, what people are using, because a lot of this does drive what data we're reporting on. Because I know we're bringing Epic data into Snowflake at Alberta Health Services, and which comes with its own trials and tribulations, getting our data from Epic into Snowflake. It is happening, but it definitely came with a bunch of trials and tribulations in getting Epic and Snowflake to talk nice to each other. So I know it's definitely something that's it's taken a good amount of effort to get that going, but yeah. Anyways, I think that's pretty much it for me, though. I mean, it's good to know that we have some good amount of people on the cloud, but also a good amount of people that are still going to, they're still have no idea what the cloud's about. So, Siuwin, are you ready to go?
Yeah,
here?
I'm here.
Okay,
I can share my
stop.
screen to get started.
Yeah, and we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, perfect. All right. Thanks so much for getting the group restarted, Eric and Brittany. So this is a great opportunity to share some of my experiences from Orillia, and then I have Naz here with me. So before jumping start, a bit of a quick introduction. So my name is Siuwin. I'm currently the director for Business Analytics and Health Information Management at Orillia Soldiers Memorial Hospital. So I've been using Tableau for more than, since 2015. So a number of years. So that's sort of through, 3 major implementations so far at 3 different organizations. So that was quite a good experience, some good learnings there. And then I have Naz with me, and then Naz, I'll turn it over to you for a quick introduction, and then we'll kick start today.
Yeah, for sure. My name is Naz, and I'm working as a business intelligence specialist under the supervision of Siuwin in Orillia Hospital, and happy to be here with you.
Thanks, Naz. Okay. I'll talk about what we're going to talk about for today. So our experience with cloud for Tableau Cloud. So today going to talk about our use case to get started and our approach, and then we'll dive down to the lessons learned and provide a live demo on one of the key features some of you might know, which is the Tableau Pulse, and then we'll have some time for the question and answers as well. So going further, looking at the first piece, when we look at use case, so we are one of the site with Cerner, and then we have a lot of different data sources, as some of you might also know, right? So you got your local files, your data lakes and data warehouses, and then with Cerner, which is our clinical data, is all housed. And when we think about reporting needs, we're having an approach of taking what we call it the data layer. So we're only pulling the necessary data elements that we need for our dashboard and reporting purpose. So it's really about, defining a top-down approach. So really looking at, okay, what we need as an objective. So we don't need to pull everything into that kind of data layer to produce the dashboard. And that's sort of where we define our sort of initial stage, and to start off from there to have that kind of flexibilities for our data analytics solution mapping. So when we talk about the business case, so going cloud versus on-prem, a few questions we started is really what's in it for the teams, right? So understanding the maturity model of the IT infrastructure and also the IT team service model going to be very important to look at the business values as well, and really understanding, what's the capability from the team, skill set requirements, the ongoing need for maintenance, and also the ongoing need for the physical assets, and then upgrade and change downtime. All of those were considered. and really to build that kind of the rally and support from the end users, right? So when we say, on the cloud versus on-prem, so then are we relieving, some of those work from our IT team? So that would be some of the support from there. And then considering other problems is really about upstream, right? So, and also the long-term strategy. So long-term strategy, knowing a little bit, because we did the implementation 3 years ago, it's really about thinking about, okay, down the road, 5 years from then, and what are some of the other database out there that are, either on-prem or on the cloud, so we can actually leverage. So on the cloud is sort of the trend, but also considering integration capabilities and then some flexibilities will definitely help us to make those kind of decisions. One other thing is to understand the data literacy and then also the digital literacy piece. So that also talks about from a organizational maturity model perspective. So the key question, in deciding when to move from, one versus the other on-prem or on cloud, is really about understanding the maturity of the organization. So are people ready for it? What's that kind of gap? And then the initial assessment, understanding, the value proposition. So there's enough value, but then is there sort of a uphill change management work you have to do for the teams to get people onboarded and then to trust the environment rather than having the traditional on-prem versus the cloud. So that's sort of a quick one on the approach. And then as you might know, a bit of, let's see, this is not showing. Okay, there we go. So on-prem versus cloud. So there's a bit of the difference, right? So some of these, there's way more details. If you Google, you see the actual charts when people do those kind of comparisons. So high level to show the difference on-prem, you really do need that kind of people resource to maintain, and then having that kind of knowledge and dependency to upgrade and change your servers actually. So that's not only the Tableau server, but the actual server you host your Tableau on, whether it's going to be, Windows Server NT, or how do you going to maintain that downtime upgrade and then testing to ensure the physical hardware going to be up and running 24/7. And then also looking at the flexibility. So on-prem, you do have the TSM, right? So TSM is the Tableau Service Manager. And then you can do way more of kind of your own internal sandbox. So that's sort of the flexibility with on-prem. And if people are like to do that, then that's sort of definitely one of the key, I would say, the plus to have that sandbox environment on the TSM side. The other one is really about structured governance model. So on-prem, you control almost like everything. And then that gave you the kind of the freedom to change things from the ground up and to ensure, every single, element within the hosted environment is under the control, and then the security within your own environment. But when it talks about, moving Tableau to the cloud, first of all, there's no server actually. So you only log in with a link, and that is the Tableau online link. You do not have the flexibility as the on-prem because there's no more access to the actual server because the server is hosted by Tableau. And that means you're losing access to the TSM, so the Tableau Service Manager. And then you don't do all of those pieces as to the development work or any of those APIs. But then the plus side is really about the downtime worry-free environment. There's always 24/7 uptime. Eventually, you might see some notification from Tableau Cloud to say, okay, once in a while, they might have to take the server offline, but usually it's during a weekend for about 2 hours to 4 hours. So that timing is the only time for downtime. But other than that, there's like no actually maintenance work at all from a server management perspective. So there's no IT resource required, and it's all inclusive in the actual licensing fee we're paying. And then the last piece is really about the governance accountability model. So where I think this is sort of a share model where I only talk about the Tableau server piece, because IT team and our data team will have access to the same environment. And then that share model means people within the data team can be the administrators, the Tableau admin, and then the IT team also have a license, can act as the Tableau admin as well. So we have to really work together to define who's accountable for what changes, adding or removing users and getting new user onboarding, to do that kind of control environment a little bit. And then when we're publishing new, let's say, dashboard or products, the sort of process moving away from dev, UAT, and production is really about defining the folders, right? So the project folders, I call it on the Tableau Cloud. We publish only certain pieces into our UAT test environment. So you set up your permissions, then no one else going to have access except your data team. And then you have a production environment, like a production production folder. Then that's where you have all your viewers to access with the permissions on that one. So that's sort of a high level on the Tableau server with the on-prem and then on cloud. So I think those are the major differences. And then for sure we can open up for questions after as well. So maybe I'll pause here to see if there's any questions in the chat or anything people might like to ask. Okay, maybe we'll also look at a question at the end. So moving forward, I'll have a little bit on the lessons learned. So one of the downside as to, we have done the MFA, multi-factor authentication for user logins. We did not do the single sign-on SSO integration with our AD, the Active Directory yet, but then we do have that kind of capability. So we haven't actually planned it out yet, because that will be a project on itself. And that's where enabling one single account for login. So right now, our users are actually using two set of different user IDs and password, right? So one is unique for their Tableau logins with MFA. The other ones are used by the Office 365 logins for your usual Microsoft logins. So that's sort of where we have that kind of the difference right now. And then the other question really to look at, when we want to move forward with that kind of single sign-on, and what's that kind of desired results or the impact and outcome will be. And then that will be very different, depends on, I guess, from an organizational need perspective for the size. And to just shed on some context, we have about 100 licenses for all users. So that's about viewers plus our developer license, and then we do have a couple Explorer license so far. So we haven't actually moved to all the Explorer license, and then that's maybe something to consider down the road when the maturity model for data literacy and I would say comfort level for the rest of the organization. Eventually, I think it might be helpful to have people to access their own data source with the Explorer licensing to play around a little bit more in there. Other problems to understand is really around the IT and the privacy team. That's sort of the readiness assessment, where we're at from an organizational standpoint. How does this align with the long-term strategy going forward? And really, I would say engaging the team with provoking questions and simulating the kind of the discussion as the what if scenarios, right? So if there's any concerns, we want to address those. And then that's actually a way to feel it out from a change management perspective, are the teams ready to actually move forward on that? And then what else is missing? And then, so how can we actually address those concerns to make sure the teams are comfortable and to look at from a adoption model and then acceptance utilization perspective. So I think that's sort of be my part for now for high level, and then I'll turn it over to Naz to continue on. So I'm gonna stop sharing. Actually, how do I stop sharing? There we go.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm going to share my screen and I'll walk you through a quick demo of Tableau polls. And these Tableau polls gives you the ability to have real-time trending. And let me show you. So to find the Tableau polls, if you go on your Tableau cloud, this would be in here, Tableau polls, and when you click on it, it gives you this window, and in here you will have new metric definition. If you click on this, and then you have to find your data source. So for this demo, I'm using a fake data, which is completely fake because of the patient information, and this fake data is generated by AI. And you have to be mindful because patient information is sensitive, and sharing it through a platform like Tableau polls may violate the privacy regulations. And it's important to make sure that any patient data is anonymized or de-identified before uploading to prevent exposure of the personal health information. So I'm going to use fake data for this one. And in our case, in hospital, what we are doing, we are using a lookup table to make it de-identified for each patient. After selecting your data source, you have to find a name for your metric. And today we are going to use average length of stay, which is one of the important indicators in hospital. And in here, we can put a description for the metrics in case if you want to share these Tableau polls with anyone, and then they can read the description and then they can understand what this metric is going to show. And then you can share with anyone that you want. In here, we are going to select the measure that we want to have the trending. I'm using length of stay, and I want to use the average length of stay. And in here, you have to select a time dimension. In my data, I have admission date and discharge date. I'm going to use discharge date, and you have to select a window for comparing the data based on the time. I'm going to use prior period, and then we can modify this after creating. And in here, I am going to add some of the metric filters, because once we make this metric, we can have different insights based on the metrics. Since I want to show you different insights, I'm going to add admission reason, condition, gender for some demographic information, the readmit reason, and then residence. We have another tab in here, which is Insights. Insights is where that give you some more insights about your data. But first of all, we have to tell Tableau the value of average length of stay. What is our favorable value? Is it going up, or is the favorable one going up? And in our case, it's not. And then to identify the data, we have to select a record identifier, which is a unique column in your data for each record. In our case, it's patient ID. So after selecting this, we're gonna click and be something in here. Summary. Okay, so in here, it shows you for the month of October. But since we want to see the trend from here, we can change the month to the last month. Then it will show us the comparison for this month to the next to the previous month. And all the other all the other filters that we added, they're here. Then it will give us this trend, which is really great, and it shows us the trend for from the range from the previous year, October 23 to September 24. And it's gonna have some explanation on top that tells us in September 24, it was 19.6 average length of stay, and within the expected range, which is in our case from the last year to this year, it goes up from 14.4 to 21.8. And there is a breakdown here which gives you different insights based on the filter that we already added to our metric. And if we change it, let's say to condition, it tells us for the condition of fracture, stroke, pneumonia, heart disease, these are the average length of stay for each of these conditions. And then we have discharge destination. Again, it shows us the average length of stay for each of these destinations, which is in our data. And then the admission reason, same thing for readmit reason, and then the residence. If we scroll down here we can see some top insights, which AI gives us some, let's say, some insights that we can choose between them. If I, let's say, press this one, it gives us another top contributions by residents. But the most exciting thing is in here, that you can ask some question. Let's say, which, let's say, gender. If I press which gender, these are some of the questions that we can ask. Let's say which gender had high average length of stay. Then it gives us this type of trending. And this would be really helpful. And if I go on top and then again press on filter, if you want, let's say, to have just the admission reason for emergency, and then let's say the readmission reason just for some of them, for follow-up, for unknown, or just infection, then you can filter the trending just to those that you are looking for. Again, it filters the data based on what you're looking for. That's sort of the live demo. It was quick, and if you want to see this trending, the live trending and live update every day, if you press follow, it would be a part of your metrics, and it shows you every single day that this trending is changing. When your data is updating, it gives you the updated live trend. And same thing for breakdown. And you can add some followers within your organization here, then they can see the live trending every day. So this would be a sort of live demo, and I'm gonna pause here, and if there is any question, I would be happy to answer.
Thanks, Naz. I just want to follow up. So for one thing around the audience for this, right? So just for any Tableau viewer license, so the viewers, they're able to see a matrix. So we want to actually build the metrics for the for the users actually, then they can actually come in to explore and then play around with the data. So when you have a question, you ask about, what is the trend? What's the top, actually, the data column or the value? Then the Tableau pulse will actually automatically give you something like that. So it enables the question from a user perspective. So that gives a little bit more of, I'd say, the flexibility from the viewer side. So they're able to do that. And then the other thing, is if you stop sharing, and I do want to talk about one key thing here. I don't want to share my screen. So this one is about the settings, actually. So we're going to share this window. So when you enable Tableau Pulse, so this is the settings on the clouds, right? So there's a section talks about the Tableau AI piece. And then when we enable the Pulse piece, and then it will summarize the metric. But then knowing this one is very important, because for healthcare industry, the PHI, so what Naz is talking about. So the SFDC, this stands for San Francisco Data Center. So any data that are in the PALS cannot be clinical data or must be de-identified, because the data are now crossing the border. Anything that runs in the SFDC, so the San Francisco Data Center, must be, some anonymized or aggregate data, because now the data going to be running there. Then they're allowing the more like a mirrored data in the backend to run us through their machine learning algorithm for AI through that. So that is a very important note for everybody. So it's not about dumping all the clinical data and then to have it. So we need some sort of control on this one. So that is a must to note. So that's sort of the only thing. So maybe Shah, I know you're here on the call to consider, if we're really needed this one for the Canadian healthcare environment. So I advocate for, a Canadian data center to run the Tableau AI piece. And then that way, we have a little bit more of, assurance from a compliance perspective. But then also just from a PHI, we have to look at that, because once we do, there must be some cautious around loading up the PHIs in that perspective. So I do see a question coming up in the chat. So yes, we do have Canadian data center. So the Tableau Cloud now hosted is from Montreal. So that's sort of the data center right now. So it's in Canada. And just seeing some of the intended audience. Montreal and then Calgary. Yes, Shah. And current intended. Yeah. So I guess for intended audience, we can also use it for our internal kind of analyst usage as well, right? So if you want to understand a data set without kind of doing too much work, so load it in, just making sure it's not PHI in there, and then you can ask some kind of questions to understand what's in the data, whether it's going to give you something. But then the dimensions have to be very specific. So Tableau Pulse is only user friendly with your with your rows contain a date field. So as you can see, there's the trend line that Naz was showing. It runs on the date. So if you're missing a date field and the date field is not properly defined as the data type, it won't actually show you anything meaningful. So that's sort of the only downside of prepping the data is almost like a must, making sure there's a date field in that data set before publishing. All right, so we're open for any questions for the cloud or Tableau Pulse. And go from here.
I know one question that I have is you showed a data layer that you're and then you had like local files and some files like that. How have you gotten your data into the Tableau server? Is it mostly because I guess the thing is that when right now for us, we're kind of we have some cloud things. We have Snowflake that's in the cloud, but our Tableau server is on-prem, and we have a mixed bag of of on-prem, off-prem services. So sometimes, for example, moving local files can sometimes be difficult or something like that. So are you using Tableau Bridge, or are you using something else to stage all your data into the cloud first, or how are you doing that?
Yeah, so very, very good question. So some of the live data we're using Tableau Bridge 100%. So that's sort of the basics. Because once you set up the Tableau Bridge, it's automatic, right? So you don't have to actually worry about the data set. So that's sort of the data pipeline using Tableau Bridge. And then the sort of the front end is also tackled by Tableau Prep if needed. So it depends on whether you need to clean the data or transformations. So I think that's sort of the automation side, and we can schedule the prep to run, and then having the bridge to pick it up and then publish over in the Tableau server. And then other things you might want to do a little bit more controlled environment as well, because we also do have multiple, ad hoc Excel spreadsheet flying over all over places. So those might be a little bit more of a manual process as to, so when I say manual, it's kind of, again, set up similar Tableau Prep, consolidate, and then control that data source. And that's sort of what I call the data layer, because that data layer only lives in either the Tableau Prep or the initial load into the Tableau dashboard in the dev environment, right? Because when you publish the data, the dashboard in the end, you don't actually see that data layer in between. So that's sort of the mesh data layer work we have to do. And then once you have the data layer setup, then I don't think there's sort of and if it's the same, and then you do the same frequency or the same repetitive work, then it won't change, right? Then every now and then, depends on reporting frequency, you only run it manually once or twice a month, and then that's about it. So that's sort of I would say a hybrid right now approach. So a combination of differences. Yeah, so not everything is automated, but also not everything is manual. Hope that answered your question, Eric.
We have another question in the chat around performance. So how is performance on the cloud compared to on-prem?
Great question. I think performance only, I would say, so far experiencing with your internet bandwidth, I would say. I haven't actually had any issues so far experienced. And then I know Naz is here, and she can also tell you a little bit more about uploading data. It depends on the size of the data. When if you're publishing a large amount data set, and then that might take a little bit of time because you're using internet traffic to do that rather than your internal VPN or local network. So that's sort of the only difference. But then when talk about loading dashboard or anything else, is pretty smooth. So we haven't actually experienced any lag or delay in loading that, because actually that is maybe, I would say, one of my positive experience with clouds. Locally, when I had experience with on-prem, there's always kind of delay, spinning a little bit longer for the dashboard to load because the compute timing. But on the cloud, so far, we haven't seen sort of over a long period of time. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And we had a reply to how often Tableau Pulse gets used in your analysis. Great. And then we have another question coming in around the pricing. So the pricing for cloud, is it similar to on-prem?
Yeah, so the pricing, I would say, if you think about the total cost, right? So total cost, you have to consider your physical server licensing and actually the human resource piece to maintain those servers. And I think the cloud is actually way cheaper than the actual on-prem. when you talk about license, because I think per license, I think it's about the same for all the what do you call it, the developer license, and then for viewers, it's I forgot 20 something Canadian dollar per user per month. So when you think of that way, is relatively cheaper than the total cost of ownership for a physical server, and then having people to actually assign as an admin or the server admin to maintain those pieces. And seeing the other question, any difference in auditing user activity? So we do have that kind of admin insight as to you on the cloud, you only have certain you only have two types of users, right? Well, for us, it's only the developers or the viewers. That's it. So basically, for viewer, they only have limited access. You provide permission, so that's sort of the same governance model. What you give them to view or not. But then on the other side, for developers, we also have that capability to build your own kind of reporting log for admin insights as well. You can also see from the team member who published the most data sources at one point in time. Yeah. Yep. That's the admin insights. Thanks, Shah. So that's one of the dashboard come with the Tableau cloud server. So.
Okay. Any final questions? Okay, well, thank you so much for that fantastic presentation. And I think next in line, we have Shah. Shah, are you ready to present?
Yep, I'll just pull up my screen now.
Great.
Here we go. All right, well, thanks for having me here. Really excited to talk about the new features in Tableau 2024.2. And I've kind of split this up into 3 different categories, right? So one, I'll just quickly go through the quick hits, kind of the small improvements to creators' everyday lives. And then we have a couple of sections in Tableau Public that I'll go over. And I'll save the best for last, our big ticket items, our featured release, and then I'll save those items for the end. So let's quickly start with quick hits, right? How are we going to make your life easier with these small, fine-tuned improvements, right? First thing is for Tableau Prep. If you are using Tableau Prep Conductor, you can now benefit from custom schedules, so kind of like extracts and subscriptions, etc. But you get to fine-tune exactly what schedule you want. Maybe it's the second Sunday of every month, or just the weekdays, or just Saturdays, daily, hourly, right? You have that full fine-grained control for Tableau Prep flows as well now. Also in Tableau Prep, we can now write back to S3 as a output of the flow. So for those users that use Tableau Prep, let's pull it up here. So this is an example flow. Once we run through this flow, we have a couple of output nodes, right? You can output your data in many different ways, whether it's in published data sources or as flat files, Excel files, CSV files, or alternatively, you can even write back the result of this flow back to a database. And we support a lot of databases, Snowflake, etc. And now we've just added Amazon S3 as one of those supported write back databases. Formatting, right? So now you have individual control whenever you're formatting legends and quick filters and highlights and parameter controls. Right? You can format them individually on desktop and the web. Right? Just a quick hit just to improve the formatting experience when you're working with these elements. Spell check, very self-explanatory, right? Spelling errors in the online experiences in web authoring will be identified, and also suggestions will be provided. right? So it's available when you're using either cloud or server web authoring. It's also configurable using your browser settings as well. All right, so those are the quick hits. We have a couple of items for Tableau Public as well. We've really, made some strides in what we offer in Tableau Public. And you may have heard in some previous releases or Tableau conference where we're providing a free version of Tableau Desktop on public, right? The Tableau Desktop for public. And aside from that, we're also making updates to the way profiles are organized. So we're using Einstein, we're using AI, and if you already have an existing Tableau Public profile, Einstein will generate automatically categories for your public visits, and it'll group your visits into those categories to really help you create an organized profile. You can opt in or opt out, but Einstein can help organize your portfolio/profile on Tableau Public. And we also have, again, Einstein integrated into public with recommended visits. So are you interested in what other Tableau Public users are creating? You can now easily discover content relevant to you. Whenever you're looking at any given viz, you can scroll to the bottom of the page and you can see personalized recommendations for what visits to check out next. And lastly, users will now be able to explore and analyze public or private data that matters to you. You can use Tableau Desktop Public for free. It's available to everybody. And now from Tableau Desktop Public, you can even save Tableau workbooks files as well. And now to the the really interesting stuff, the featured functionality, the big ticket items. This is what I wanted to talk to you about the most, and we'll also see some of this live in a demo as well. And the first thing are multi-fact relationships, right? And this is really where you can bring in disparate data sets and relate them with common tables that have shared dimensions. And this, this feature might look a little intimidating to some. You might not really understand, what is a multi-fact relationship? How does it benefit me? In what situation can I use this? And to really answer that question, I'll just rewind a little bit back in time, back in history. Just talk about how things evolved over time, right? So we really started with back in the day we only had joins, and when you wanted to join a lot of data and tables together, you would have to use this join window. And really, what this does is you're physically joining all of these tables together. And maybe you just you go to town and you're just full of outer joining everything. You end up with a massive flat file with lots of nulls, etc. It's not really a good experience. And when you do it this way, you can't really answer questions like, which products have I not sold? Right? When you're doing it this way, it's kind of hard to answer that question. And next, we kind of improve that experience by introducing relationships, right? Which is a much more dynamic and intelligent way to combine data without having to specify any joins up front. Whenever you make a query, Tableau will intelligently select the best join type to return the data back to you, and we can answer that question. Which products have we never sold? But there's still a limitation in that relationship experience, which we are addressing with this new feature, which is multi-fact relationships. And that is, if we're looking at this relationship model here, right, line items might have a product ID, right? But what if I wanted to see what products my customer bought? I can't just drag this products up here and relate it to customer, because then I lose a relationship down here. And I don't want to duplicate this product CSV and attach it to each of these columns either, right? That's kind of an inefficient experience. So that's where multi-fact relationships come in, where we can share the dimension across different categories. So I'll open up my Tableau desktop just to show you how it looks like in practice. And I have this orders, and orders have returns, and orders have users, okay? And maybe I have another table that has, an order ID, okay? And if I attach order ID to returns, the relationship is set up automatically, which is good. And if I go to some of the tabs that I've built, we can see that the data is not really showing up in the way that I need to, right? We have 3 different names, but they all have the same manager, which is kind of odd. It's not what I'm expecting. But if I look at the return data, right, this is an acceptable result here. So we have the name, we have the order ID, and how much the sale was, right? This one happens to be null, but it's still expected experience. So this one works, but for this one, the data is kind of showing up a little mismatch here. So maybe I want to drag it down here instead, right? So now this first viz is fixed, right? Now we see the data rolling in for all the managers. It's all looking good. But then our second viz is kind of broken, right? We're seeing all these different order IDs and all the different sales under each person. This is not the way that it should be. And that's because we're moving this around from one to the other. We can't really share this dimension between returns and users. So that's where this new feature comes in, where now we can create a base table, and now we can share this with both of these. So what you couldn't do before is either one or the other, or you had to duplicate it itself, and which is not a good experience. But now we can create a new base table, now share this. Now if I go back to my viz, all the manager names are rolling in, and also all the return data looks well. So it's really a multi-step evolution that we went through, from joins to relationships. We figured out the limitation here by not being able to share the dimension, and now today we're able to share that dimension and just really make it easier to join data and also share data across different tables. Next, we have the VizQL data service API. So this, in my opinion, this has massive potential when you're in the space of creating custom applications. So you're no longer coupled with the Tableau UI, right? Underneath the Tableau UI is what we call the VizQL engine. And that VizQL engine is kind of that secret sauce that really translates your data into what Tableau should show. And Tableau has its own UI, right? But what if you wanted to build a custom application? You wanted your own UI, right? You don't want to use Tableau's predefined UI. So this, we're really opening up the hood of what's underneath Tableau, and we're providing that service to you so you can get all the data and build your own custom UI on top of that data. So this has a lot of use cases, and especially for developers and folks that are in that custom application space, it's really going to open the doors to what you're able to do with Tableau, the engine itself. And I'm really excited. I can't wait to see what people come up with. Next is Tableau Agent. So in Siuwin's presentation, we saw Tableau Pulse, which is an AI capability that we have on Tableau Cloud. But we also now have Tableau Agent, right? So this is more for the creator user. And this is your new smart assistant during the creation process. And one of the first questions I get all the time is, hey, Shah, this sounds pretty cool. And the bottom line is, can this help build a dashboard for me? And the answer is yes, right? This is exactly the kind of workflow that Tableau Agent is designed to support. You type in questions in natural English, natural language. You say, hey, Einstein, build me a bar chart that's sorted in descending order by this, that, and that. And Einstein will build that for you. But we're not limited to just, building dashboards. Really, any action in the Tableau platform, Tableau Agent will be able to support you. You need product help. And instead of having to tab out to different help articles, etc., you can just ask Einstein, and it'll give you in-product help without having to tab out and swivel your chair. Maybe you want to do a calculation, and calculations can be a little intimidating sometimes. Not everyone knows how to use calculations and what syntax is appropriate. There's hundreds of different calculations that you can choose from. So instead of having to know how to build a calculation, you can just use the agent. You can say, hey, Einstein, extract the text from the beginning of the field to the first hyphen character. And Einstein knows that, you're looking for a split calculation, and it'll build it for you with the right syntax, with the right fields that you defined. So really reducing that skill gap between users, not only just for the new users will definitely benefit from this. They won't need to know nearly as much detail as how to build a dashboard. Einstein can help a lot during that process. But also for experienced users, this will really help automate and speed up some of the daily tasks that you do. And I do have a live demo for that as well. So here we've built a pretty pretty basic chart, right? It's a bar chart sorted by descending. These are our top accounts by revenue. And right away, we can see in the sidebar, right, our Tableau agent is helping us out. Maybe I don't know what to do next. Maybe I don't know how to get more value out of this bar chart that I built. Well, we can use some of the suggested prompts from Einstein to help augment this viz and really get to a more valuable state here. So maybe I'll use this first one here, right? Which top accounts are not Tableau customers? Right, Einstein will build us a new view, and really it's not going to take over. You don't once you use Einstein, it's not going to take over the entire process. You're always in the loop. You can always come here, do your own human actions as well, and then go back to Einstein, etc. So now I only have a tree map of just accounts that are not Tableau customers. Maybe the next thing I want to do is, hey Einstein, where are these customers located? And Einstein is smart enough to know that I probably want to represent this on a map. So we'll go ahead, ask Einstein. Einstein will build us a map dynamically and plot all those accounts at their actual location. And we don't just stop there. Maybe we want to layer on some more detail on top of this map. We can say, hey, layer on locations where there's Salesforce events happening in Q3. Einstein, again, will generate a new map layer. It'll show us different Salesforce events happening around these customers. We can even draw a 50-mile radius outside of Chicago, zoom into that, and now we have a lot more value out of that first bar graph. We can see here's all the customers that are accounts that are not Tableau customers. There's a Salesforce event happening nearby. We should probably invite these guys to this event. And since we've built a couple sheets by now, naturally the next thing we want to do is probably put it together in a dashboard. And Einstein can also help with that. We can say, hey, you know what? Put all this together, create a summary, add a table with revenue and account, make a dashboard for me. And Einstein will do just that. Again, you can spend some more time here. You can format it further, edit the title, bring in company logos and branding, colors, etc. And even in the publishing experience, so you can tell Einstein, you know what? Go ahead and publish this for me and share this with my teammate on Slack or Microsoft Teams. And Einstein will be able to help with that as well. So really helping with that. Really, any creator platform type action, not just building dashboards. Einstein is there to help you and speed up and get you value faster. Whether you're a new user, experienced user, everyone will benefit from this. So that's Tableau Agent, available today on Tableau Cloud. Next, so this is a very, very exciting one too, right? We're working in Tableau, right? We're tired of bar charts, tired of pie charts. Sometimes we go to Tableau Public, find some inspiration, some cool custom vizzes. We try to steal it. We do our best to make it work, right? Everyone always says, right? It would be awesome to have more natively supported chart types, and this is our response to that, right? Viz extensions, really opening the door, opening the floodgates into what kind of viz types we can natively bring into Tableau. And one of the most popular ones is the Sankey, as we're looking at here. And you might be used to building Sankeys before, and if you're anything like me, I had the worst time ever, trying to work with Sankeys and use Sankeys, right? I'd go to Tableau Public, just type in, Sankey. I'll look for something remotely similar to what I'm trying to do. Maybe I'll download the template, and once I download the template, you kind of realize the author of the template kind of did a lot of hacks, putting a lot of squares into circular holes. We're really trying to make it work, some homemade solutions, and it's kind of hard to even use these templates. Or maybe you went into YouTube, typed in Tableau Sankey, and you watched like a 19-20 minute video from 7 years ago on how to really create a Sankey in Tableau, and it wasn't the best experience. Anyone who had to go through that, I feel for you. And we really, in our response to that, with Viz extensions, you're going to see now how easy it is to use, Sankeys, for example, in Tableau, without having to hack it, create that that homemade solution. So let's take a look at that. If you want to use Viz extensions, we'll just go over to Viz extensions, click Add Extension. Sankey's available, tree diagrams. There's a lot here. Check it out. The extension gallery is also in product now, but I've selected the Sankey one. It's by Tableau, so it's native. And I'll go ahead and select that. So now I'm looking at my data, right? It's Superstore data, just sample data here. And maybe I want to look at the relationship between categories and subcategories and segments. So the first thing I'll do is I'll just drag category to level. And boom, we have our, our Sankey forming here so easily. And maybe the next thing I want to add to this is segment. So I'll add that to the link, or actually I'll add it to another level, sorry. So our segment's down here. And now we can see for furniture, right, there's 3 different segments, right? One going to consumer, one going to corporate, one going to home office. I mean, our Sankey is forming, but it's not really showing us any useful information at this point, right? What if I want to see how, sales or profit or quantity, right, relates to our categories and segments, right? It's just as easy as dragging profit into link. And now the sizes of our lines here really change to show the different profit levels, right? So we're getting a lot more use out of this. So maybe I want to, instead of profit, I want to do quantity. Or maybe instead of quantity, I want to do sales, right? Really make it easy now within 2 or 3 steps to create Sankey. It's so easy, right? I don't have a 20-minute YouTube video I need to go through. I don't have a 20-minute tutorial here. I have almost a 30-second tutorial now on how to use Sankeys. And there's no limit to the Sankey. You can add, even more and more detail to this. So if I just turn it back into profit, maybe you want to see ship mode as well. Where's ship mode? We'll add it to level, right? So now we added a 3rd level to our Sankey. Well, what if you want to do a 4th level, right? I don't recommend creating massive Sankeys, but I'm just really trying to illustrate that you have that ability now to very easily create custom Sankeys to whatever detail you need, but hopefully you don't make one looking like this. Make it a little smaller, get some more value out of it. But just want to demonstrate, a breath of fresh air here. It is very easy now to build Sankeys, and not just Sankeys. Our Viz extension gallery, check it out. We really opened the gates to what other Vizes we can support natively in Tableau. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. Again, we always post our latest features, release notes, and also what's coming in the next releases on our website. Check it out. Thanks for having me. Hopefully you found this useful, and I can't wait to see what folks come up with the features that we talked about today. Pass it back to Brittany.
Sure. Okay, thank you so much, Shah. Looks like a lot of excited messages in the chat, so I think everyone's really looking forward to those new features. I think there's a few questions in the chat as well, Shah, if you'd like to take a look and maybe answer some of them.
Sure. So question from Eric. Just reading it silently. One sec. Yeah, Eric, I would say yes. I mean, you could probably do it today with just the REST API itself, but that's probably still achievable with the data service API as well. Any plan for text mining function in Tableau? I'm not really familiar what a text mining function is, but this was a 2024.2 release. We've also had a new release since then, and we do support sentiment analysis in Tableau Prep. So I'm not sure if that's the same thing as what you mean by text mining, but we do have sentiment analysis for columns in Tableau Prep now. And also the question, is there any plan to add or contains operations for linking conditions? I mean, if you're using things like SQL, I mean, you can definitely write that in the code. But in terms of having some native or contains operations, I'm not sure. I'm not too sure. I think this is one I'll probably take away and take a look at. I just don't know off the top of my head. Sorry. Sandra asked, does agent require a creator or explorer license? So this requires a creator license, And I think another question came in. I have Tableau 2023 in developer license. Can I use Tableau Prep? The answer is yes. If you have a creator license, if you have Tableau Desktop, that same license will grant you access to Tableau Prep as well.
Okay. Thank you so much, Shah. Any final questions? All right. Okay, so we'll just pull up my screen. Okay, can you see that?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, so excited to be here today to share a little bit about Hamilton Health Sciences' journey with Tableau. I introduced myself at the beginning, but if you're joining late, I'm here joining on behalf of our Central Analytics and Business Solutions team at Hamilton Health Sciences in Hamilton, Ontario. And so today I'm going to walk through just a quick introduction to HHS, talk a little bit about our Tableau journey. I'm going to give a bit of an overview as well of our central analytics team. I'll be walking through kind of where we're at today and where we're hoping to go in the future using Tableau Blueprint as a guide. And then lastly, I'd just like to discuss some lessons learned with our deployment. Okay, so Hamilton Health Sciences is a teaching and research hospital system with a community of about 14,000 staff, physicians, researchers, and volunteers. And we serve Southern Ontario residents. We also provide specialized advanced care to people from across the province. Okay, so historically at HHS, operational reporting was very challenging. I'm sure a lot of people on this call have been in the same boat. There was no single central kind of repository or source of truth when it comes to data sets. And so we really like to call this the tangled ball of string. There weren't many tools or skills beyond just basic Excel for automated reporting by end users. No central team managing automated reporting, lots of manual work, wrangling data, analyzing data. And there really became a need to implement an organized sort of data infrastructure, curated data sets, and the tools for analytics and data visualization so that we can better understand our data at HHS. So as part of the digital health plan at HHS, we went to market for a solution. In 2019, we deployed Tableau on-premise with 40 creator licenses. At this stage, a unified data architecture, a data warehouse was created, and the formation of a small centralized team or analytics team of about 10 members across IT and finance portfolios with the plan to expand the tool to power users across the organization. In 2020, we really hit the ground running with the urgency, and I'm sure many of you experienced this as well, the urgency to provide critical reporting for COVID-19. So in response, our central team developed the first series of dashboards using Tableau. In 2021, we launched an analytics portal called My Insights. We're going to talk a little bit about this in a bit, but this was really designed as our one-stop shop for Tableau access, education, support. This is also the year that we began launching the first Tableau published data sources, and access was provided to analysts and advisors for the organization at that Explorer license level. Around this time, or in 2022, the organization did a big transition from the health information system Meditech to Epic, which required a pause in development pending data remediation. At this time, we also expanded our security capabilities within dashboards by implementing row-level security to help us launch more sensitive products. And then also around this time, we launched our first internal Tableau community user group. In 2023, the team was spending much of that year remediating dashboards to use Epic data and relaunching all of the impacted reporting. But we also started implementing the use of relationships in Tableau and in our published data sources. And that brings us to today and this year. We have about 600 active viewers accessing dashboards and about 160 active builders across Creator and Explorer licenses. Our central analytics team is working through some high-profile corporate and program scorecards, and our BI team is implementing a new and improved data warehouse design for our unified data architecture using a unified star schema. Okay, so this is just a quick snapshot of our data and analytics architecture. On the left side, you see some of the source systems that we connect to. So building analytical solutions really across many different source systems: labor, supply chain and utilization, finance, patient activity. We pull that data into a unified data repository in the middle, and then on top of that, we build our front-end solutions. And so you can see Tableau on the right. And one of the important things to note is that not only are we developing and publishing dashboards, but we're also working towards building these cleaned and ready-to-use trusted data sources or published data sources that advanced users can use through the organization to build their own ad hoc reporting and dashboards. So within Tableau, we're publishing dashboards across 4 main streams, as I mentioned. So finance is really supporting the financial planning and analysis through the evaluation of actuals, budgets, forecasts, variances. Labor and workforce supports the planning and analysis for productivity, absenteeism management, staffing models, scheduling and attendance, employee demographics. Supply and utilization supports the analysis of utilization of supplies and materials, as well as the overhead and administrative services. And then patient activity supports the planning and analysis of patient activity data, so live encoded across ambulatory, acute, rehab, complex care services. And some dashboards bring together metrics from all 4 subject areas so that leaders can kind of get that holistic snapshot. So something that's important to note is that My Insights is really focused on back office dashboards, largely displaying aggregated data from different source systems, whereas Epic is where you can find the patient level details or purely clinical based reporting that uses Epic data only. And so overall, we have about 70 officially published dashboards, 47 published data sets, all coming from across 17 plus different source systems. That being said, we have over 500 community-based dashboards as well, not falling under sort of our published brand, but being used in sort of departmental sandboxes and personal spaces and that sort of thing. So all of this is brought to the organization through what we have branded as My Insights. So My Insights is both a brand and a portal for how users throughout the organization access the dashboards and data sources. The portal is designed to be this one-stop shop for not just access, but things like news and education and support, instructions for builders on how to develop and publish their own dashboards. We're really trying to build a community and a center of excellence through My Insights with regards to data and analytics. Okay, so this is just a little bit about the UDA and My Insights team. So to achieve sustainability, several groups were brought together to work on My Insights as a central dedicated team. So the orange team on the right, we call the Analytics and Business Solutions team, and this falls under our decision support services. And then the blue team falls under our IT portfolio at HHS. And so overall, it's really a combined effort across IT and business. The left side being sort of technology and data custodians, while the right represents stakeholders and the business driving the use cases and dashboard development. It's important to note that the team works fully remote as well and has been since COVID. Okay, so Tableau is a huge part of our data mobilization strategy, but there are other aspects surrounding that as well. Everything from how we manage intake of requests and prioritization to the community that we build around the tools, to the data governance and the importance of data quality, which eventually feeds into what we build. So really our approach goes beyond just the BI technology itself. And there has been a lot of work put into kind of the processes and the best practices that surround that. And so many of you have likely seen this Tableau blueprint before, and if you haven't, this is a really nice prescriptive guide that Tableau has of best practices to scale your analytics program. So over the next few slides, I'm just going to use the 3 pillars here of agility, proficiency, and community to kind of walk through where HHS is today and what we're hoping to achieve in the future. So in terms of deployment, monitoring, and maintenance, in terms of content management, our production server is organized into subject areas with sub-projects for development, test, early access, and published products, representing kind of a standard publication path for builders. So it's important to note that we also maintain distinct Tableau environments for upgrades, as well as more complex published data source testing. Where possible, we are also trying to do our best to publish data sources separately from dashboards to establish reusable sources of truth and just to continue to grow our self-service model for analysts throughout the organization. And then row-level security has been deployed for a number of dashboards. I think I had mentioned that before. Lists. So for example, HR dashboards might have employee level details and would require row-level security. And then lastly, we have processes in place to monitor server performance and data extract jobs. And so what's next for us? Much of our access management and permissions on Tableau server is managed by our centralized team, but we would really like to take a next step of looking into decentralizing that to the product and access group owners in the future. As mentioned previously, we generally try to avoid publishing any kind of PHI or patient details in Tableau dashboards. We keep things very aggregate, but we are investigating solutions to build the logging required to support dashboards with PHI in the future to comply with HIPAA laws in Ontario. And then although we have already deployed about 55 creator licenses and 120 Explorer licenses, we'd like to continue to expand that deployment and those licenses out to new areas of the hospital to support analysts. So this is just an example of how our projects are organized on the Tableau server. So you'll see the 4 subject areas I referenced earlier. Within each subject area is a set of projects representing development, testing, early access, and finally published folders representing either dashboards or data sources. I'm going to give you a couple of examples of dashboards across two different subject areas. So one in labor and one in patient activity, just to give you a flavor of the kinds of content that we're building. It's important to note that the data in these screenshots are falsified and so should not be interpreted as representing HHS. But this first dashboard is for absence management and was built in partnership with our HR departments. And it really helps identify issues and trends related to absenteeism within departments. It visualizes absence rates, trends, absence episodes, patterns for respective areas, and then compares it to that organization rate or across different departments. I won't go into too much detail, but one of the key takeaways is that we are trying to keep our dashboard layouts consistent in publications. So things like ensuring there's always a last refresh date on the top right-hand side in the same spot, ensuring that we always have information page links that takes you to more information about the data source or exclusion-inclusion criteria, definitions of fields, keeping the filters as the same format. And all of this really helps build consistency and familiarity across our publications. So the next example here is a dashboard representing sepsis, a patient activity stream. So this shows key indicators relating to sepsis, including the volume and rate of hospital-acquired sepsis episodes, as well as the mortality outcomes, length of stay, and hospital-acquired infections associated with the episodes. So the first screen is really that monthly overview. The second is trending over time. And this was built to support HHS's corporate level in your objectives. And here you can see it includes many of the same consistent layout features that was shown in the previous HR example. Okay, so I think we're at 3:30. Eric, do you think it's okay that I keep going?
Yeah, I think we can just run. I realize that we're a little bit longer than we scheduled for, but I think we can just run for a little bit longer and then just, I think we might
Okay.
as well,
Okay.
keep on chugging on a little bit.
Sounds good. So heading to the next pillar here with regards to education, measurement, best practices, our current state, we've built on-demand generic training courses for different Tableau license levels. In addition, we have kind of product-specific training through demo videos and tip sheets. We've established a style guide to help builders with branding and visualization best practices. And we've also set up a set of custom admin dashboards to sort of help us monitor usage and uptake of the tools for both dashboards as well as people accessing and building off of PDSs or published data sources. And so all of our products go through a publication readiness checklist, which I'll show you an example of in a minute. In terms of what we're hoping to achieve as a next step, although we do try our best to move away from data tables with Tableau, we do continue to have dashboards that contain them or have really complex builds and complex visualizations to sort of support specific areas with subject matter expertise. And so moving forward, we're really trying to set standards for publications to move away from complex designs or large data tables that are maybe more designed for analysts, and instead ensure that we have dashboards with kind of executive friendly design so that we can obtain more adoption with senior leadership. We're always looking for strategies to help us with uptake for old dashboards, whether that's redesign or re-engagement with users. This is something that we're hoping to create a standard for in the future. And then lastly here, our enterprise data governance team, who we work closely with, will be rolling out data quality and literacy training, as well as establishing roles for data owners, stewards, and custodians for different source systems. And so this, of course, will positively impact our tools and dashboards on the downstream analytics side. So this is an example of our production readiness checklist for dashboards and data sources. I'm not going to go through every section of this checklist, but this is how we certify content that is published widely or under the MindSights brand. It covers everything from visualization standards to testing to security to setting up extracts for a published data source or dashboard. And it's really become our North Star for our content builders to help them guide or to help guide them through the publication process and the development process. And so many of these items have come to land on this list just due to lessons learned in the past with different publications. It kind of acts as a gate for us to catch issues that have created problems for us in the past. And then lastly here, I think I just have a couple more slides, is communication, engagement, and support. So mentioned it a couple times, but we have an analytics portal to really support a kind of community hub for folks to find more than just access to dashboards. We've also started to really build out a center of excellence for creators and explorers. This includes internal group meetings, which it has spotlights on builders, weekly office hours for builders to drop in and get help with Tableau. And then lastly, we have a dedicated inbox for My Insights, which acts as a help desk, where we either help with access, education, dashboard questions, Tableau questions, or relay it out to our technical teams. We also have an intake process for new dashboard requests, which includes prioritization methodology to help us prioritize our development roadmap. And then in terms of what's next, we'd really like to build more awareness across the organization with everything that we're doing. So we're going to be launching a standard analytics newsletter for leaders in the coming months. We're also hoping to improve our intake process with the potential move to a single integrated intake model for all analytics across the organization. So not just Tableau, but potentially Epic, Cohito, as well as an improved model to prioritize high profile requests that come in all the time from different VPs across the organization. And so this is just a quick screenshot of our builder portal supporting the Tableau creator and explorer communities at HHS. We've included links to data sources, resources, templates with our branding, the style guide, as well as other key links within Tableau. Okay, and then lastly, just to kind of cap it all off with lessons learned, there's really a combination of things here ranging from kind of larger governance to strategic things to technical lessons learned. But firstly, building a style guide or a branding guide for your dashboards is very important to help build consistency and guide content builders in your organization. Next, establishing data and analytics governance early in your rollout, ideally at an executive level. And this can help with data quality issues, ownership around data sources. It can also help align your development priorities and what you're choosing to build in terms of what's important at that corporate level. The next one, the iterative approach. So dashboards quicker to market is what I like to call this. So the trick here is to use an iterative approach to development, even if it means getting something out the door that isn't perfect and having different stages or versions of a dashboard. The next one is ensuring data sources are being published separately from dashboards, again, to build those reusable sources of truth. With regards to permissions, we found that using a group structure with Tableau permissions is much more sustainable for us than adding individual users to products or projects. Implementing RLS on dashboards can sometimes be complicated depending on the nature of what's required. We highly recommend thinking about this at the beginning of a project to kind of bake that into your dashboard design and your timelines. Consulting not only operational users, but also executive users when building dashboards is very important. They may have very different requirements. And then lastly, we have found it difficult at times to walk that line between a centralized sort of governed model for publishing content versus what we like to call sort of the Wild West of everyone using the tool and publishing anything that they want. And so the trick here is to kind of find that balance so that you don't hinder tool adoption with too many hoops to jump through for publishing content. And I think that's it. So just a little over time. Thank you so much. I think there's a lot that we can do as a community here to share best practices. And so hoping to have kind of an organization spotlight each user group meeting so that we can learn a little bit about each other's deployments and hopefully share some ideas. Any questions from anyone? I know we're over time here.